to episode 172 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who ghosted us during the last episode, John Scott Sloat.
Now, that wasn't an intentional ghost.
It was not.
Somehow it came through our headphones but didn't make it onto the recording somehow?
I think the error was actually in the editing software.
Really?
Yeah, I think the actual recordings were fine. I think the error was in the editing software. So I guess I'll have to be a little bit more attentive to make sure. Like when I played it, music came through, both mics came through, looked good on the screen. So I'm not sure what happened there.
Interesting.
But anyway. So, yes, thanks everyone for reaching out and letting us know.
Yeah, how many people reached out to you?
A few.
Okay, I heard from 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They told me they could still hear me through
my microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just let's clear the air here. There was no intentional me cutting John's mic.
Yeah, one person did suggest that to me. I think in sort of a tongue-in-cheek sort of fashion. But.
Yeah, I did not do that. I will forcefully deny it. Yes. So if you'd like to reach the show, you can find us on Twitter at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and on YouTube. And we'd love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a review. So, John, we were in the midst of some weird weather.
Yeah.
Like we had last week.
It's beautiful.
Which felt like late spring, early summer.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like late May. Temperatures in the upper 70s, pushing 80. At points almost hot.
Yeah.
And then
Saturday was kind of peak for that.
Yes. And then as we record today on April 17th, we are barely going to hit 40 in terms of a high temperature.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Oh, and I drove through snow on the way to work today.
That actually was on the ground? Or
no, it was in the air.
Okay.
It was just in the air. It was just kind of floating around. But it was chilly and windy today for whatever reason. But apparently it's supposed to be upper 70s in a couple days.
It is. Yeah. I mean, this is what you get
living where we live.
In mid-April in the Midwest. So, all right. You ready to talk some sports?
Sure.
So the probably the biggest news or sports story is it was the start of the NBA playoffs over the weekend.
Yep.
Props to your Knicks.
Yeah, they pulled it out.
They won Game 1 against the Cavs in Cleveland. Much to the chagrin of my sons and Nate from Ohio. They were not pleased.
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't pleased. I mean, other than Donovan Mitchell, not many people showed up for the Cavs.
Yeah, we didn't get to watch the game because we were somewhere else, which we'll talk about in a moment. But yes, from what I understand, the Cavs gave up a ton of offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter that basically sealed their fate. So. You know, it's a 7-game series.
And in fact, hey, I think an offensive rebound made the highlight reel for the game.
It's believable. So Knicks are up 1-0 there. We won't go through all the series. I'm guessing. Well, I mean, some of the games were. There was a game on ABC yesterday. Did you catch any of that?
I did not.
Okay.
No. And I won't catch Tuesday's game. It's on TNT.
So. Yeah, I mean, probably the most, probably the biggest headlines coming out of this weekend were the Heat beating the Bucks in Milwaukee after Giannis goes down with a lower back contusion about, 5-6 minutes into the game, I think. And so depending on the severity of his injury, that is a season changer right there in terms of they're the 1 seed, and I think a lot of people like them coming out of the East. But without Giannis, they may not get out of the first round.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't know that they get out of the first round without Giannis. And then in the West, Did Ja go down with an injury?
No.
No? I misread that then.
I mean, I think he was banged up. I'm trying to remember now. He did hurt his hand. Is it hand? But I don't remember if he came back into the game now that I think about it. Lakers won against the Grizzlies in Vancouver.
Yeah.
That's where they used to be, right? Didn't they start there?
The Grizzlies?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I could be wrong. Anyway, they're in Memphis. I know that.
Okay.
So
they're currently in Memphis.
Yes. Thank you. But that was a series that was interesting going in because the Lakers rallied to get into the playoffs, but they are starting to play probably their best basketball of the season, and they added pieces at the deadline that have been significant improvements. And so they're a team that even though they're coming in as the 7th seed, even if Memphis was healthy, I would not be shocked if the Lakers won that series. I'm not saying they necessarily would, but I wouldn't be shocked by it.
They've got to stay healthy, and I think Anthony Davis left the game with an injury.
He left at the end of the second quarter. Something with his shoulder or arm or something, and it didn't look great, but then he played in the second half and was fine. So.
Yeah, he came out of the game, and I think the video picked him up going, I can't move my arm.
Yeah.
Not good for an NBA player.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the official diagnosis was, but that could be a stinger. You know, like you get hit funny and your whole arm goes numb. Okay, but just some good old time and blood circulation.
Put
eventually.
some WD-40 on it.
Yeah. I think one of the other intriguing series is the Kings against the Warriors. Because if you weren't really paying attention, you wouldn't necessarily realize that the Kings were the
number 3 seed.
The 3 seed.
Yeah.
And so that's a little I think people look at the name brand of the Warriors and they're like, "Oh, well the Warriors should win that." But Kings won game 1. Let's see, was there any other surprises? Maybe a little surprising in the 4-5 game, the Suns lost to the Clippers at home. But I don't know. I think it feels like this year's playoffs are more wide open than I remember them being. Really, probably on both sides, both East and West Conference, Eastern and Western Conference.
Yeah,
that there's less of a. I mean, we went through such a long period where, in the East, whatever team LeBron was on, they were coming out of the East.
Yep.
And in the West, then you had that stretch where the Warriors had their run.
We're so good.
Like, well, obviously Golden State's going to come out of the West kind of thing. So that's not the case anymore. It feels much more wide open.
It does. It does feel wide open this year. Any predictions on who's coming out of the East and out of the West? Are you not ready to make that yet?
I don't know. I suppose the Celtics, if I had to pick a team out of the East.
Okay. A team we have not talked about.
Yeah. And in the West, if I have to pick somebody, I don't know. I'd like to see the Nuggets. The Nuggets are always one of those teams where they have a great regular season and then they are a complete disappointment in the playoffs. Is this finally the year that they climb over the hump and get to the finals? It feels like they're healthier than they've been in past years, but I don't know. We'll see. What about you?
I mean, I'm in a similar boat. I think the Lakers are probably coming out of the West.
Really? From the 7 spot?
Yes. I like them to make a deep run.
Wow.
Partly because of the things we've mentioned here. They made a lot of moves. They got LeBron. AD is healthy-ish. When he can move his arm.
He's so fragile, though. Like, he is so fragile. If he could stay healthy, I could see it. It's just I can't bring myself to bet that he's going to stay healthy.
And then out of the East, there's a large part of me that wants to pick the Knicks.
That's not happening.
But there's also a large part of me that's like, I want James Dolan to sell that team. and the more they lose, the more likely it is that he sells.
I see.
You know, so I have that sort of conflicting sort of sense. But yeah, it's probably the Celtics coming out of the East.
I think they're the safe bet, especially now with Giannis hurt.
Yep.
It seems like the Celtics are the safest bet, but it wouldn't surprise me if, as long as Giannis is healthy enough to play, the Bucks could easily come out of that too.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about some baseball. I have not paid any attention to baseball.
Okay.
So how are the Mets doing?
Mets are doing okay. Last year they came out of the gate hot, and they were hot through probably June, July.
Yeah.
And then sort of tapered off at the end of the season and culminated in a playoff loss. They've started a little slower. They've had some injuries. One of the bright spots has been our first baseman, Pete Alonso. Have you seen video of him before?
No.
They call him the polar bear because he's kind of shaped like a polar bear.
Okay. Which is typically not the ideal shape for an athlete.
Yeah, for a power hitter, though.
Okay.
I mean, it's okay. But he has 8 home runs in 16 games.
Okay.
So he's
on pace for 81.
Yeah, okay. He's moving at a really good clip right now, and so it's been really exciting.
All right.
But they're out on the West Coast. They just swept Oakland. So we got the Dodgers and then the Giants coming up. So that'll be a good test for us, I think.
So have the players and the umpires adjusted to the rule changes, in particular pitch clock?
For the most part, yeah. It's still weird when the pitcher is like half a second late to his windup, and the ump waves it off and goes, ball, before he even throws it. That's still something to get used to.
Okay.
But you want to know what? Getting through a game in 2.5 hours
and so
is marvelous.
Okay. So the pitch clock is displayed somewhere. So clearly the umpire can see it from where he is.
Yeah, I think in most stadiums it's sort of off to the left from the pitcher.
Right.
And then there's one in the outfield as well, so the umpire can monitor it.
And so is the rule that the pitch has to be released?
He has to start his motion.
Has to start his pitching motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he can only – the weirder one is he can only throw over to first twice.
Yeah.
And if he throws over a third time, he has to get him out or it's an automatic take your base.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me is a bigger game-changing rule than the pitch clock.
It's led to some fun gamesmanship though. So like if you got a speedy guy on first and they throw over twice, he's taking a massive lead.
Yeah.
I mean just massive, daring that guy to throw over.
Yeah.
And he may even be leaning back to first saying like I'm just going to dive back into the first base and beat the throw.
Right.
And then I'll get second base anyway.
Yeah. That doesn't count as a stolen base, though.
I don't believe so. I don't think so. But guys are running more. There's a lot more stolen bases. I mean, in my fantasy baseball league, normally last year I was getting 2-3 steals a week. I'm getting like 10 or 12 right now. So a lot of actions on the base paths, and the game's moving at a quicker clip, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. They'll adjust.
They will.
They'll adjust. How long do you think it is before they go to automatic balls and strikes? That they get rid of the balls and strikes umpire? You still have to have a home plate umpire for other things.
Yep.
But in terms of the actual calling of balls and strikes, it just goes all automated.
I don't know. Normally they test those things out at the minors first and then bring it to the major. So you need at least 3 to 5 years at the minors before you bring it up. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that they're doing that yet. So, I mean, we're at least 6, 7, 8 years away from that.
Okay.
So I still think there's some pretty good time there.
All right.
But, they're trying to remove things that fans almost want to get upset about. Mm-hmm. People want to be upset at the referees to a certain degree.
Yeah. Though, I don't know. I think there still would be plenty opportunity to be upset just in terms of safe and out calls.
Yeah.
Not just you think about it, like baseball is unique in just every play, if you want to call it that, the official has to make a decision and declare it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, obviously in football, there are plenty of plays where there's no penalty called.
Yep.
So in essence, they're kind of making decisions and saying that's not a penalty, that's legal or whatever. But it's not announced. It's just assumed. It's everything's assumed legal until the official throws a flag and says, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. Kind of the same with basketball.
Right. But in baseball, it's you make a definitive statement either way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a matter of time because it's so inconsistent across different umpires.
There's a great Twitter profile called there's two. There's one called Ump Scorecards where they will rate each umpire based on a game and which way they push the game. Mm-hmm. And then another one, I think it's called Welcome to the Ump Show, where it's just bad umpire calls that are worth a follow on Twitter.
Bad sports refereeing is always entertaining when it doesn't involve your team and you don't really care that much. You know, when it's like, well, yeah, that's a terrible call.
I can imagine sports radio going like, finally, another bad referee moment. We have something to talk about.
Oh, yeah. That's free content right there. Mm-hmm. All right. Ready to move on, John?
Sure am.
Our topic today is weddings.
Yep.
Yeah.
What precipitated the decision to go with this?
You and I attended a wedding this past weekend.
Mm-hmm. And we should probably refrain from any specific comments about that wedding. Is that fair? I mean, judgment calls on like this was good, this was bad. You know, does that seem fair?
I think it's good to affirm things that we liked.
Okay.
I don't know that we necessarily need to make any other statements.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I thought it was a great wedding.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I was a big fan.
And even like, here's what I'll say to sort of qualify our statement. I think there's a lot of flexibility and freedom you have in terms of making a wedding enjoyable.
Okay.
Now, I think there should be some sort of fundamentals and some non-negotiables. And I want to make clear, I think that the couple and their families or whatever the dynamic is there should absolutely feel the freedom of, we just want a small private gathering that's just very kind of intimate and personal. Or we want to throw the big shindig where we invite hundreds upon hundreds of people and it becomes this massive, throwdown party. I think there's plenty of – so I don't want to give the impression of I think there's a perfect sized wedding. Depends on what you want.
Okay.
But when I think of this topic, I'm thinking more of from a guest's experience.
Okay.
What makes a wedding good? What do I look for? What do I enjoy? What do I not enjoy about attending a wedding? That's what more I'm thinking.
Okay.
And so, you good with that?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
good. Do you want to say why this was a memorable wedding for us? The one we attended this weekend?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's memorable for a couple of reasons. One is the woman who got married, good friend of ours.
Absolutely.
And she was in our small group for many years. She's been a friend of our family, a friend of your family.
Yep.
And we have –
I've kicked around doing a weather podcast with her for a time.
Yes. And we've prayed for a while.
Absolutely.
For her to find a husband. And the Lord finally opened up that door and provided a great man for her. So that's part of what made it great.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and even perhaps more so, I might even say, or at least on equal level, at least from our perspective,
okay,
was that we had a great table of people that we were a part of.
Yes.
So
that makes a great reception.
Yes.
A great reception for sure.
So you and your lovely bride, Andrea, myself and Kate, and then two other couples that are very good friends of ours.
Yep.
And so, but that one of them in particular Zach in Ohio and his lovely bride, Sarah, we don't get to see very often.
Also in Ohio.
Yes, that was sort of assumed. Yes. So the fact that all 8 of us, all 4 couples were together, it's hard to remember when that's happened.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It's been a minute.
So there was a lot of laughter, a lot of storytelling.
We actually discussed the podcast quite a bit.
Yes, we did. We did have,
and you kept looking to me for help.
you were unwilling to help.
Unwilling? I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know what you wanted me to do in that instance.
I don't know. Well, what I wanted was Zach and Gabe to zip it in terms of them encouraging some of the conversation. But I know Zach thinks he was trying to help at some point.
Yes, but I cannot shut them up. You've known us long enough that
this is true.
That they're – gosh, how do I feel about that statement? They are more likely to put their foot in their mouth
than you?
Than me. You
I
think that's fair?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I cannot stop it. I cannot stop them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, basically, the issue was when, if ever, is my wife going to be on the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
That was the topic of conversation.
Now, I will say, it wasn't just Zach and Gabe. Your wife was jumping in on that conversation as well.
Yes, she was.
And she's very pro being on the podcast.
She is. She is. Yeah. We'll see if that ever happens.
Yeah.
We shall see. So, okay, big picture.
Yeah.
Let's start with the ceremony. What makes a good wedding ceremony?
I am a fan of loose traditions, I think. So I want to see, a song played as, the groom sits his mother, does those things. Mm-hmm. The bride comes down, everybody stands up.
Yeah.
There's a ceremony with vows and promises and things like that. And then I want an announcement and I want a celebration. That's what I want. That's what I want to see in a ceremony. And I need it to be between 20 and 30 minutes. Anything over 30 minutes, you're pushing your luck.
Okay. All right.
How do you look for other things?
So I'm much more of a traditionalist.
Okay.
Though I am open to variations on things.
Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of said loose traditions.
Yeah.
Like I don't need a certain song played while the bride comes down the aisle
absolutely,
or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I generally prefer the traditional vows as opposed to the bride and groom making up their own.
Mm-hmm.
Though I will say at this wedding this past weekend, it was a combination of both, essentially.
It was, yeah.
Which I'm fine with. As long as there's some form of the traditional vows, I think it's good. Because ultimately, what I don't want is just the bride and the groom talk about how much they love the other person, mm-hmm. what they think is great about them. And there's no like, I am committing to you to do this. I am promising before God that I will do this and I won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's at the core of what a wedding ceremony is in terms of making a set of vows, a covenant arrangement between spouses before God. And that's really the purpose of having people there is they are witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, these are the people who, if they see us going wayward, are involved enough in our lives to be able to say, hey, what's going on here? Like something's happening here. Like you're wandering astray or they're like. So to me, I think especially in light of the fact that marriage is a picture of Christ in the church, I think the more covenant-oriented you make that, the easier the picture is to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I'm more a fan of the traditional.
The in sickness and in health.
Yep.
Those
Richer, poorer,
richer,
all that
poorer.
sort of stuff. But yes, I'm more of a traditionalist on those.
Yeah.
On the vows.
I tend that way as well, within some loose parameters.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Now, what about the message? What about – because inevitably there's typically some kind of message that the officiant gives.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a good one? What makes a bad one?
Well, I'm always looking for like, hey, here's a message of Christ. Here's the gospel. Here's Christ and his, this is a picture of what we see here today of that. So
Yeah.
I'm specifically looking for that.
Yep. Me too.
And then, there's always some advice thrown in, which was weird for me. I've only performed 2 weddings, both as a single man. So that was weird to throw like advice in and kind of go like, this is what I hear about marriage that's really good. But anyway, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking for in a message. And again, we got to get it all in 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I am firm on that. Like anything longer is too much.
I think a 10 to 12 minute wedding message is probably about the sweet spot. It's enough that you can actually say something that has content.
Yep.
But it's short enough that it doesn't feel like, is this thing going to end soon? Like,
yes.
Does the guy not realize it's not about him?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So yeah, I think those are.
My mom always tells the story. Apparently, at her wedding, I was not there. She had laryngitis and could not. She lost her voice, and so that made the in sickness and in health thing really funny. At the ceremony. But she told the officiant, like, "Listen, I am not feeling well. Let's make this quick." Mm-hmm. And he went on for 45.
Whoa!
Like the ceremony is like 45, 50 minutes, and she was not pleased.
Yeah.
With the officiant that day.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not cool. What about venue?
That's one of the tradition as we sort of laid it out. Tradition would be in a church. I'm okay to variations on that. That's one way. That's one spot where I'm willing to go like, yeah, have it wherever. Have it in a barn. Have it in a mountaintop. Have it in a wedding chapel. Have it on a boat. A beach. I don't care. I think variations on that are really, really quite fine.
Yeah, I think I largely agree. Again, I'm the traditionalist, but I think as long as the ceremony communicates the covenant nature of of marriage and those realities, I don't know that being in a church adds that much. Mm-hmm. Like I think it can all be done by whatever the officiant does to make those realities clear, as well as even just the staging and props or whatever. Like there could be there could be a cross, or like there can be visual things you can do that communicate the more covenant nature of it that don't require being inside a church sanctuary.
Yeah.
So now the reception. What makes a good reception?
Prepared speeches by maid of honor and best man.
Okay, and length.
Oh, short. I mean, 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
Agreed.
At most, and written down ahead of time. You've thought about this.
Yes.
When somebody's making something up on the spot,
Everyone
can tell.
Never good.
Not good.
Yeah. Another rule for the speeches besides the prepare in advance and the time, know your audience and don't embarrass.
Yes, don't
embarrass
no.
the bride especially, but don't embarrass the bride or the groom. Mm-mm. You can tell funny stories, but there are lines not to cross.
Yep.
Where you embarrassed, especially, and I won't name the wedding, but I've seen this where something was said that was embarrassing to the bride, and it was all the more embarrassing because her family was obviously in the room. And it's like, oh, no, don't say that. Like, that might be something you say among the wedding party at like the, if you're hanging out, not even the rehearsal dinner where the family is. Like, if you're all hanging out together and it's just the wedding party, maybe that's the sort of ha-ha moment where you're like, oh, yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. But you don't do that in front of the family and in the more public venue. So that's another rule, I think, for the – also, let's just say, how about just one on each side? Like
one speech?
Yeah, one groomsman, one bridesmaid. You can push me into two on each side.
Two speeches or two people?
Two people, or two separate speeches on each side.
Okay.
That's the most you can talk me into.
I thought you were talking about wedding party in total.
No. I'm talking about speeches.
Okay. Yeah, I think one speech on each side is fine.
I've been to some weddings where it's like, this is now the fourth person on the groom's side that's speaking. Why? Why? Like, that's too much. It's too much. So, yes, I think that's another factor. Size of wedding party in terms of attendance on each side.
Size of wedding party?
Yeah. Like, how many groomsmen, how many bridesmaids? Again, I think there's room for –
There's room for variation.
Yeah.
Probably no more than 5 or 6 on each side.
Okay. Yeah. I think – I had 5.
Okay.
I had 5.
I had none. We got married right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, and you were so broken up about that.
Yes.
But I went to a wedding where there were 12.
I was at that same wedding. And I think maybe one after that also had 12.
Yeah. Like, I know you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but you got to pick. Like, you got to pick.
Yep.
Like, who do you think you are, Jesus? You don't need 12. You don't need 12. We got to talk about food.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to food.
Okay.
What's the best way, or what are some good ways to handle the ceremony is done. Ceremony and the officiant has dismissed the participants there, or the crowd, the audience, whatever we're calling them. But they still have pictures. The bride and the groom still have pictures. How do you manage that downtime between then and when the reception actually starts, when they announce the wedding party as they come in?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways. You can do pictures before the wedding. That's one way to deal with it. That way you can almost seamlessly transition in a 15, 20-minute period from one to the other.
Yeah.
Or you have something like a hors d'oeuvres hour or cocktail hour or something like that in between. And depending on the size of the wedding, that works out really, really well.
Yeah.
If it's too big and nobody can find like their people, I found that to be a little rough. But at a smaller, intimate gathering, hors d'oeuvre hour, cocktail hour can be quite fine.
Agreed. Yep. And that gets us to food.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I think that downtime should be minimized as much as is reasonable, so that people aren't in this like seemingly never-ending, nebulous. What do we do with this time? Like, what? Like, you got to have some food there. You got to have maybe some activities. If people want to play a little cornhole, if it's outside or something like that, or just things that kind of help pass the time. But that gets us to food. If you're going to do that, you got to have appetizers.
Mm-hmm. I was actually at this last wedding. I was talking to so many people that I never actually got any appetizers. I know. What? I never made it to the food line.
It was good.
Mm-hmm. I saw other people's plates. It looked fantastic.
Fresh fruit, some veggies. They had meatballs. They had bacon-wrapped, cheese-stuffed jalapenos. Delightful. I probably ate too many of those.
Yeah.
And then main course. What's some of the better wedding food you've had that you remember?
before the worldwide pandemic canceled Andrea and I's wedding, we had gone to Indianapolis and sat down with a chef who prepared for us like one dish of everything he makes.
Yeah.
And you got to pick like one or two for your wedding. And so we're just like trying all this stuff. All of it was incredible. And I'm sad that's
the one piece of the larger wedding that
it'd have been amazing.
Yeah.
But like at this wedding, I think there's a wide variety of things you can go with. Just make sure it's good food.
Yeah.
That's
and make sure that there are options that I think hit a wide spectrum of people's tastes. Sometimes you can get so niche, like, ooh, there's this really fancy and like, but there might be people there who really don't care about really, really fancy small portion food. They want like just good quality food.
Yeah.
That's more traditional, for lack of a better term, or just sort of simple food.
You don't want salmon burritos with sriracha or anything?
Well, if you want to do that, fine. But then you got to have a more normal option like brisket or some form of chicken or something that's a little bit more like, okay, this hits a broad swath of people.
I went to a wedding one time and they had two different food trucks come.
Oh.
And you could go to one of these two food trucks and basically they had a preset menu. You could get whatever you want at these food trucks. The one that I went to was like a Mexican-Asian fusion food truck.
Okay.
And it was quite good. That would not be the food truck you choose, though.
Probably not. No.
You'd probably choose the other. Well, I can't remember what was the other food truck, but
yeah. And then for the dessert, I mean, it's funny. Again, our wedding, and then obviously, like it was cake. Like that's what you did, and there was really no option, like other than just like, do you want chocolate? Do you want white? What kind of frosting do you want? Those sorts of things. Now I feel like fewer and fewer weddings that I go to even do cake.
Well, do you know why that is?
No.
So when we were looking at venues, Andrew and I, they charge you for every piece of cake they slice. It's like a couple bucks a slice, something like that. So if they're slicing that cake, they're charging you for each slice. So I think that's why a lot of people are going to pie. Now, pie doesn't necessarily solve that problem.
You still got to slice it.
But a lot of people are going to cupcakes, donuts.
Cupcakes make sense. In that,
for that very reason.
Okay.
You're about to get upset. Oh,
I'm
my
not
goodness.
about to get upset.
Here we go.
I'm about to tell a story.
Here we go. Snarky Matt.
No. It's a story for my sister's wedding. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so I think I can get away with this.
Oh, boy.
I think I can get away with this.
Oh, boy.
She had cake.
Okay.
And she asked my wife to be the cake slicer. That's how she got around. Basically, so my wife's job for the wedding
Was to cut the cake?
Was to cut the cake. I think you just use like a string. That's the easiest way to just slice it that way. But that was my wife's job at my sister's wedding.
Yeah, I know that was a big discussion for us. It was going to be like an extra $300 or $400, and
yeah, that seems crazy.
We're just like,
no,
we can get cupcakes and
no, that makes sense. To me, cupcakes makes the most sense in light of that. That you might do like a small wedding cake for like the bride and the groom or something that they can keep, freeze it, have a piece on their first anniversary.
Did you guys do that? Did you guys freeze?
We did. It didn't necessarily hold up super well.
No, neither did our cupcake. No, we did, and it ate up way too much of our freezer space for a year. And we just kind of kept looking at it, just like, I want to fit more in here. Why can't we get rid of this cupcake? And
gotta wait a year.
We held on to it.
Gotta wait
for a year.
Yes.
Through the pandemic, I was always in the house with that cupcake, like constantly taunting me. and I'm a person that if there are sweets in the house, I gotta have them.
Yep.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
And that cupcake taunted me for
a whole year.
For a full year.
A whole year. Okay. Anything else on the topic of weddings?
A table can make or break it.
Absolutely. I do think there are pros and cons to the assigned seats and to the sort of free-for-all. I think assigned seats is more work on the part of the bride and the groom, obviously. But I think if that's a feasible option, I think that's better.
Oh, yeah.
Generally speaking. Generally speaking. And, you get a situation like this past weekend, which was a home run.
Yeah. Yeah. I did advocate for the bride is currently in my small group. I did get the opportunity to advocate for that specific table.
Yeah. I don't know how else, though, we would have necessarily – how she might have done that differently.
I don't know.
But, yeah, I mean, it seems to me not only was it a great group, it was an obvious group in light of relationships and that sort of thing. But anyway, though I guess they might have decided to go by small group and put you with other members of your small group that were there. So anyway. Good stuff. Good stuff. So shout out to Heidi and Ty.
Congratulations.
We're very excited for you.
I don't think they're podcast listeners.
Probably not.
No.
But feel like we should celebrate that as we did then.
Absolutely.
All right, John, time now for This Day in Sports History.
Okay, This Day in Sports History. April, oh my goodness, 18th?
18th, yep.
April 18th, 2023. 1964, the LA Dodgers pitcher Sandy Koufax strikes out the side on 9 pitches for a Major League best third time in his career. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the best you can do. Striking out 3 consecutive batters on just 3 strikes, 3 straight strikes.
1966, Bill Russell becomes the first African-American coach in NBA history.
And I believe he was a player coach at that point. I think that's correct.
Yeah, that's 66?
Yeah, because he was still playing.
1991, excuse me. John Stockton breaks his own NBA season assist record at 1,136.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of assists for John Stockton. One of my favorite NBA players because he just did not care about the fanfare. He was kind of a no-nonsense kind of fella. Anyway.
And he's a guy that if you bumped into him in Walmart or in public, you wouldn't look at him and go, oh, that dude plays in the NBA.
Well, you wouldn't have done that when he was playing.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Because do you remember there was a documentary a few years ago about the Dream Team, which he was on?
Yeah.
He's walking around Barcelona with his video camera interviewing people about the Dream Team. You excited to see the Dream Team?
Yeah.
Who are you most excited to see? Oh, Michael. Oh,
yeah. They have no idea.
And one guy goes, I'm really excited to see John Stockton. I'm really excited to see him. Really? And it's John Stockton behind the camera doing the whole thing. Anyway, 1994, the 98th Boston Marathon, Cosmos Nadeti of Kenya wins second straight title in 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 15 seconds. Uta Pip Pig, excuse me. How could I sully that good name? Of Germany claims women's race in 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
I thought I handled those names with grace and panache.
Until you got to Pig. Pip
Pig.
Yeah. Cosmos Ndeti. Yeah.
Ndeti, yeah.
Yeah.
Classic Kenyan name there.
Yeah, sure.
1998 NFL Draft, Tennessee quarterback Peyton Manning is the first pick by the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, there it is. A little bit more diversity here. A couple of NBA, baseball, Boston Marathon, NFL Draft, which that's coming up next week, I think, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's next Thursday, the 27th.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I think they start on Thursday.
Yep, Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Who do you like?
I like Sandy Koufax.
Really? Interesting. I wouldn't have suspected that.
What do you like?
Well, I'm gonna scratch out Bill Russell. Too frequent. I mean, again, he's not to the same level as Wilt, but he pops up a lot. It feels like.
Does.
And so I could go with anybody besides Bill Russell there. I might have gone with Peyton, but I can go with Sandy Koufax. I like that. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with Sandy.
Okay. One thing you liked.
This past week, I did a bit of traveling and had dinner with a couple of alumni. They're married. And we go to sit down, and the alumni looks at me and goes, I'll try not to talk about the podcast the whole time. And then I said, okay, didn't know you listened. That's awesome. Yeah. And then he goes, at the end of dinner, goes, can we have a bit of time to talk about grass? So my one thing I liked was I had dinner with Zach and Kate in Indiana.
Okay. Yeah. Well, shout out to Zach and Kate. Thanks for listening. Mm-hmm. We love.
I think Zach listens more than Kate, but
okay.
Kate.
Well, sometimes Kate might be in the room.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah. You know. Yes. So my one thing I liked is, in light of the wedding this weekend, Zach in Ohio and his lovely bride Sarah stayed with us at our home on Friday night and into Saturday before the wedding, and we just had a great time catching up. They didn't have their kids with them, which I think that's the first time the four of us has hung out with nobody's kids around in like forever. And we love their kids. Their kids are great, but there's just a fun dynamic of two couples catching up and being able to freely talk and that sort of stuff. So a lot of fun. Though one thing that did come out in our conversation at the table at the wedding, Zach from Ohio has not listened to the pod in over 2 months.
It's been a busy 2 months for him. Like I'm inclined to give him
You're going to give him a pass on that?
I'm inclined to. But
okay.
I can probably err towards graciousness. So if we need a little bit more law, I'll let you come in with the law.
I think that would be Nate in Ohio's job.
That would be Nate in Ohio's job.
To come in and say there's just no excuse.
Well, maybe we need to have Nate in Ohio encourage Zach in Ohio to do some listening.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm sure he'd be willing to jump on board and encourage Zach in that way. All right, we have talked NBA playoffs. We have talked what makes a good wedding and the excellent wedding we attended this past weekend. We have talked Sandy Koufax. We have talked John eating dinner with a podcast listener and his bride. Mm-hmm. We've talked about hanging out with Zach and Sarah from Ohio. So I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. And so all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless you all real good.
Later.